Wizardell is the strongest in Arknights, and that's okay. I keep hearing about her. I've never used that at the start of the game. People are like, you gotta get Wizardell, you gotta get Wizardell, until people say, yeah. Unless you want to switch your brain off forever for the game, maybe don't get her. She's supposed to be absolutely ridiculously cracked, and let's see what Cookie's got to say about this then, shall we? Wizardell is the strongest in Arknights, and that is okay. Guys, if you haven't checked out Cookie, you've probably checked him out. If you happen to have not done so, though, go check him out. Awesome content creator. Let's see what he's got to say about this regarding Arknights, and I wonder if we're going to get into a little bit of a meta discussion here, maybe.
It is obvious that Wizardell is the strongest in the game, but way before Wizardell, we've got a long history of strongest characters. With each new strong character appearing, there is always the question.
There's always the strongest until there's a new strongest, right? We also have Cert now as well, guys. We also have Cert now as well.
Question of, is the meta break?
I was actually shook as well. Sorry to keep pausing it straight away. I got Certa. I haven't E2'd any unit share. You probably don't know that. I never really speak about it. I never speak about the fact that I'm still E1 in the game right now. But I saw gameplay of her at E2 and I was blown away. I was like, I even said to people, I was like, chat, who's that down there? That looks pretty cool. And they were like, yeah, that's Certa, bro. And I was, oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay. I get it now. Because the way I've got her at the moment, I'm like, yeah, she's all right. Yeah, game changer.
Are these all just cash grabs? There's a pool of people who enjoys all these new strong characters, but there's also people who finds that this is destroying the environment of the game, the health of the game. Let's use this video to discuss the...
Okay, all right, fair conversation to get into. As somebody, I can't say whether it's destroying the game, right, because I haven't experienced it, right, but I will say one thing, and if you've ever watched my streams, you know this is how I feel, right? I don't like tower defense games, right? I fell in love with Arknights. I absolutely love the game. It's so much fun. The strategy, working things out, getting the pieces of the puzzle, and then finally getting that last one to make it happen. And I've been getting most of my enjoyment from being at the position I'm at, not having a massively built-up team, no E2s, a few 6 stars now, started to get a couple more, mainly still using 3 and 4 stars with some 5 stars here and there, and, you know, pretty much having a sort of low rarity, low level setup for my squads. And, oh my god, overcoming difficult stages is such an amazing feeling. You don't get it from many games, especially not in the gacha space, in my opinion, where it all coming together and it just clicks and you clear that stage you've been stuck on for a while. Oh, it's so enjoyable. But again, I can't say what it's like when you've got the more powerful units. I know that probably alleviates some of that, but from what I've heard, there's still plenty enough hard stages in the game, even when you've got some of the super strong units in the game as well.
The meta in Arknights, but before that, let's also talk about what their history is.
Okay.
Back in my days, we used to have the big tree. There was Exio, Silver Ash, and Aofiela.
Okay, I have actually got Silver Ash. I honestly don't use him often. I've used him a couple of times. It's not really a character that really fits for my general playstyle, if I'm honest. So I didn't really know he was that good of a unit.
I can't do that voice for so long, but anyways, my OG
maybe it's another
E2
E2 situation though, you know. I don't know.
These were the characters that everybody told others to pull for. Of course, while they were strong for that point in time, later on we saw the first actual strong character, and that was Cert.
Okay.
Cert was crazy for her multi-target ability.
This is what I saw. This is what I saw. I was like, who the f is that, Chan? They were like, yeah, that's Cert, bro. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, that's the power of the E2, bro. The power of the E2, which I'm almost there. I'm not gonna lie, I'm almost there. The new event, the Zwilling Sturmey event, I got to the boss, and oh my god, I am getting my shit pushed in. My cheeks are getting spread. I did get to the second phase of the boss, I know, and it got about 60% of the health. I just ran out of time. I just don't have enough DPS at the moment, but I'm getting there. Oh my god, if I clear it without E2 as well, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be so happy.
And just how high the damage can go. And the ability to stay invincible for some time of a skill duration, that was also helping with stalling certain of the bosses and elite
actually
enemies.
Crazy.
That character was so mad at the time of CN community that when it translated down into JP and EN, She was the first character that I think a lot of people are saying, save your Orandums. You got to pull for this character.
Okay, she was the first must pull then.
After Cert, the next influential character that might be in line would be Cert. But Cert wasn't as big when she released.
Yeah, a few people have said that as well. Would have been a good one, because like when it came to choosing my banners, I did decide to go with a Cert, but Cert was definitely a choice that was there to go for.
Because people didn't quite understand the helpfulness of a skill that was very fast, and true damage at that point in time wasn't significant enough. We don't see as many enemies in the game.
As summon now, does it have the highest defense and attack in the game, or is it the highest HP and attack in the game in terms of an individual unit? I could be wrong. I'm sure I heard that in a video somewhere.
They have high defense or high resistance. So people took a while to appreciate Cert. But the one that people really went crazy about was Chen Alter. You're talking about a 5-lane range, or someone that can do a big amount of slow, able to reduce the defense of the enemies, and just have a true AoE.
That looks really cool as well. I'm a big sucker for the VFX effects in Arknights. I really am. Like, I'll be likely to put. Obviously, you should always pull for fun anyway. But I am a big sucker for like really cool looking visual effects on the on their skills and on their attacks. Like,
skill, no matter the number of targets, she will hit them all. That was one of the most impressive characters at that point in time, and y'all would remember there was some drama involving Chen Alter for various reasons, but one of the reasons was people were thinking, is this character just way too strong for Arknights? Chen was strong for a period of time, until later in the game, we start to realize that the stages seem to be almost made to counter Cert and Chen Alter. Cert was the arts that reached.
Okay, see, like, obviously, we speak about these in other games. I can't speak, right? I'm new to Arknights, right? And I'm only at chapter 6. I'm only just doing certain. I've just literally did my first ever IS run as well, which there'll be a video up. It might have gone up before this or after this. Check it out on the channel when you get a chance. My first ever run. You know, I haven't really dabbled in the harder content in the game, so I can't really say. And obviously, I haven't been here from the start, so I can't see the journey of Hypergryph, if you will. But obviously, when you do get characters that jump up, you tend to have the content follow them, specifically if there's a couple of units. But that being said, that is one thing that I really like about Arknights, where these units might be, as I say, right, you bring this unit in, just wis'adel it, just Cert it, where they might actually be able to, like, crack open that particular stage with relative ease, shall we say, but it's still capable of being cleared with really good strats and really good planning and multiple attempts as well, if you me, on some of the content as well. Again, not done the harder content, but there has been stages where people have suggested to me, I think it's time to E2 now, or you really, if you had this unit, you'd have this done. And we've managed to make it happen, you know, and I'm not claiming to be some high-end player. I'm not. I'm trash at the game. I'm still learning everything. But, like, that ability to hit a stage and be like, shit, I haven't got a clue what to do here. And then after a few tries, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I think I see light at the end of the tunnel. And then about another 2 hours later, you manage to clear it. It's a good feeling, though, yeah? It's a good feeling.
Right, and Chen Alter,
I think it's one of the positives about Arknights.
So, with these two sites being settled, it's almost like they could do anything in the game. But we can see that there are stages where their ranges might not be as applicable towards how the enemies move. So later comes another big queen, and that was Ling. Ling was absolutely insane, because the amount of stages that Ling can clear all by herself are too many to count. You don't get a situation where Cert and Chen Alter is the only person within the stage. But Ling was the first time that you can see so many one operator showcase, and if not at most two operator showcase, because her dragons being...
See, that sounds insane to me. That looks really cool as well. Oh, she got like a dragon summon then. Ah, okay. Yeah, that sounds insane to me. The idea of clearing stages with one operator, I'm just like, yeah, it's far beyond my capability.
Able to have very high HP stats, being able to have high attack, again through AoE skill as well, where everybody in the range of the dragons can take arts damage, and that 4 block, the very first 4 block within the game. All those things were crazy to see within Arknights, and it just felt like any stage that you see.
What? Let me know in the comments, what other units have got that then? Because you said the very first 4 block. What other units can do that? I know is it Koro? Her skill allows you to block 4, right? I think it does, right? It does, yeah. It does, right?
Ling was the one in order to save you. I think Ling was the first character that really sparked debates within the community because a lot of people are questioning the idea of having only one operator to clear everything within the game. If that's the only thing that you need to do, then are you even playing the game anymore? And of course, some people will argue that the downside of Ling is exactly her strength, which is she's a summoner. So she's going to take up so many deployment limit that you won't be able to use anybody else within the stage. But that isn't
But if you don't need to, does it matter?
something that is very difficult to get by. I mean, if she's the only one that needs to be there and she can clear everything, what exactly is the issue, right? And it's not like you're going to use all your deployment limit for just the dragons. Most realistically, some people would still have a vanguard so that you get their DP going, and you still have supporting people around in order to, say, make the dragon stronger and whatnot. But of course, that ends up looking like you're just playing Ling Knights. You don't have to do anything else within the game. Eventually, people grew up from Ling Knights, I suppose.
Yeah, see, for me, like, that sort of stuff's cool, fun, you know, for a little moment, just to, like, be like, how cracked is this unit? But I personally don't think I would have fun in the game like that. Obviously, everybody likes to play the games differently, right? And I think there's so much variety in stages, mechanics in stages, events, agents themselves, and combinations of agents. There's so many different ways to play this game, and I think that's one of its, well, it's its biggest strength, apart from the music. It's its biggest strength. I personally, I couldn't do that. That's where the fun in this game is for me, is trying to figure things out. That's why I'm so adamant about not going E2. I know I'm going to have to, right? I'm not that good at the game, and I don't think I'm ever going to be that good at the game where I can be like, you know what, watch this. I'm just going to stay E1 forever. But that being said, it kind of will be a sad day when I have to E2. I'm not going to lie, because I don't know, just because I've E2'd a couple of units, I know the challenge isn't going to go away. I'm not that naive, right? I'm not. But, oh man, I think I understand where people have said some people really get the enjoyment out of Arknights of putting self-actualized restraints on their gameplay. I get it. I find a lot of enjoyment in that myself as well. That having to figure it out is the biggest bonus in this game for me. And as well, you know, it's got gorgeous music as well while you're doing that, right? That's a big bonus. And I've got to say, the more I play the game, I've really fell in love with the visual style of this game as well. When I very first saw it, probably a couple of years ago, it's before I even got into gacha games, I was like, yeah, it's not for me at all. That isn't. It's some 2.5D freaking tower defense game. Yeah, skip that, bro. Well, I've come to really appreciate the visual style of the game.
Because
Probably my
some of
bias
these
kicking in,
dragons that
you
are
know,
high
bro.
DP isn't as fun, and if you only use one person in the stage, it can get boring after a while. So people don't really do that as often. But then the next big deal, it's crazy to say that this is the biggest operator in the game, because he doesn't even attack when his skill is turned off, and that is Moina. Moina is still one of the biggest units within Arknights, and the reason for that is that on his skill tree, he's almost like a Silver Ash, but the damage ceiling is so much higher comparing that without module, and there's true damage within his skill. If he's attacking enemies, there's going to be true damage. If the enemies
Dude,
are
he's
attacking
clapping
him,
there.
they also take an amount of true damage.
Dude,
and
he's
that
clapping there.
scaling of his attack is just
Was that? Oh no, it's lagging a little bit then.
so tremendous that it clears so much of the content within the game. If you look at Killstin V's guides or anybody else, Moina is a very hot.
Shout out to Kyo for letting us mirror his stream before for the 6th anniversary. Just want to say again, if you ever watch my videos again, thank you for that. We did speak in DMs and I did say thank you very much, but really appreciate that. Awesome content creator. Really nice person as well.
One single 6-star in order to deal with so many stages. It also helps that his skill pops up quite quickly, and that is one of the reasons why he's such a popular pick. The naming of operators doesn't stop quite there. After Moina was released, we have so many operators that I think today we consider as some of the strongest people in the game.
Okay.
There's Texas Alter, Reed
heard
Alter,
that, yeah.
Yato Alter, Innes.
We know about Reed Alter and Innis as well. These were when it came to choosing my units, Ascalon and Cert. When it came to choosing Ascalon specifically, which I'm really happy with Ascalon as my choice, it was the ones that I was really fighting against was Reed Alter, was Inez. You know, they are really good units, and that nuke on Reed is ridiculous. But yeah, I think for me, definitely just the flexibility. I think of Ascalon was a massive thing for me.
Alter, Typhon, Virtuosa, Dagonbreaker, Ray, and
That was another one as well. Dagonbreaker as well was another unit that I was really contemplating getting. And she, oh my god, the artwork as well for her. Woo!
Escalon, Logos. There are so many units that I think are considered crazy. And while these are considered the higher upper tiers of the 6 stars within Arknights, there's still a lot within the middle of the pack that a lot of people enjoy using as well. But of course, after this came the one that destroys them all, and that is Wizardell. Wizardell has a different tier of the 6 stars. In fact, her strength level is almost like a 7 star. There's a lot of things that you don't quite see in other 6 stars that only Wizardell could.
A question. I don't know. I don't know if this is like a design philosophy they've maybe pulled away from, because I don't even know when Wizardell came to the game. You'll have to let me know. Will we see a unit that surpasses that unit in the game ever? You know, do you reckon we will, or would that be just too much? Would that be too much?
Do. If we just look only at her skill tree, which is the bread and butter, the one that everybody cares about, that skill has the ability to nuke a gigantic range.
She's ridiculous.
It has a very big physical damage amount, and the summons doesn't do physical damage. Those summons can deal arts damage. The benefit of those summons
that is just crazy when you think about it, right?
Is that it also camouflages her, allowing for her survivability, since the enemies will damage the summons before they damage her. Her and those summons allow for even her normal attacks to go absolutely crazy. The fact that it's able to just hold off so many of the smaller enemies and even sometimes the elite ones.
Just look at that
is
AoE
so
damage.
spectacular to see. It's
insane.
Almost like as if there is no weaknesses to a character like this. I forgot to also mention that she's able to stun people.
It's like super powerful all-rounder. It's just like, what does she do? Well, yeah, that's what she does, yeah.
It is a chance to stun when she attaches an after image on an enemy, but when skill tree is turned on, it's basically a guaranteed stun. If you have ASPD on Wizardell, you can think of how crazy that would be, because it's almost like you're casting a perma stun onto the enemies. So it's just so powerful of a character, and that's why a character like her sparks debates of, does this set a bad precedence for the future with all these strong characters appearing? Is this bad for the game? Is this good for the game? And that is the part where I want to give my opinion to this matter.
Okay.
Meta break.
I want to make a statement, obviously. This is probably specifically a more generalized statement, and then obviously Cookie will get into it. He's the expert here. It all just depends on how the devs follow up with it, right? You know? Because if we do have a unit like that, you know, at the moment, a game, for example, something like Zenly Zone Zero, Miyabi's came in cracked, right? Cracked. Kind of probably, I suppose you could argue, a sort of an equivalent to Wizardell in a sense. Just absolutely leagues above everybody else, you know, and it's not even close. To the point where you can kind of just play the back game with your brain switched off, where obviously Zenly Zone Zero is a little bit more, it's just reaction-based than something like Arknights, so you can switch your brain off anyway. But as somebody who got Miyabi, and I had fun for a while running like Miyabi and Evelyn and Yao, just a crack team, quick swap it between Evelyn and Miyabi. Actually going back to play other units after like doing that for a few days, I kind of forgot that enemies attacked back and kind of forgot how to play the game. So it can cause a problem. And if you start to then like have units that kind of, well, the way we fix that is by chasing those units, I think you can get into a problem then, because then obviously everything else in the game in terms of content has to ramp up with said units. But of course, that doesn't have to be the choice, right? You can have these standalone units now and again where maybe they just stand above. Maybe they were I don't want to say mistake, but maybe, you know, just a little bit too much, and that's noticed. It's seen as a thing we don't want to keep having happen, and then the content doesn't have to reflect that one unit. That one unit can kind of just stand above everything else, and if you have it, if you want to play the game a little bit more brainlessly, you can play the game like that. And if not, I guess you don't have to use the unit. So I don't think it has to mean it sets, I suppose you could argue it does set a bad precedent, but does it have to be a fulfilled, does the prophecy have to be fulfilled, shall we say, of it going down the route of, okay, now we're in a really bad spot? Because we've seen plenty of games do that, right? Where it's constantly just trying to chase that ever-increasing power. Endgame rallies up as well. If you're not getting in with all the new units, you get left behind. You know, Star Rail's a perfect example of that, of a have and have not kind of game. But again, you'll have to let me know when Wizardell came out, because as somebody who's new to the game, and I'm still earlier on, it doesn't feel like that's a problem for Arknights, so I guess they've gone down the right route of dealing with it.
Picking is part and parcel of any live service game. Live service games needs longevity. So one of the things on their agenda is to make sure...
Sorry to keep pausing it as well. I said this before. Hypergryph is always seen as inherently a bad thing, right? It doesn't have to be that way. If it depends on how fast it happens, how much increments jump up in between the creeps, how much units that you've pulled for get made irrelevant, or if they ever get made irrelevant, how you bring in support units that can help buff older units, buffing older units as well, making sure you build the content around the majority of the units rather than just specific units as well. Can negate all of the negatives or majority of the negatives and have the positive of, it's cool to see new stuff that looks really cool and might be just a little bit more powerful as well, because it makes units desirable at the same time. And for a game that relies on that, it is important to just have that. It's just about getting that balance just right though, where new stuff's desirable because it might increase your power levels to a degree, but it doesn't necessarily change the game as a whole, and everything else is still potentially pretty viable for the most part.
That they can release aesthetically pleasing characters or very strong characters to incentivize people to actually spend some money and get these characters. And you see that in basically all of the other gacha games. But there's something about Arknights that I find that is very different from other gacha games, and that is the need to pull these characters isn't as much as you think of it.
I agree.
If you recall all the strong operators that I just named in the front of the videos, those...
I think that comes down to real good stage design, right? And real good designs of characters' kits and mechanics within stages as well, that there's so much potential. Of course, there's the most efficient way, which there's always going to be, but there's just a myriad of other options as well. Again, like I was doing some of the stages on the Lappy event, and even some people were like, I haven't seen that played like that way before. Not saying that there were good clears. There was me kind of just like sticking plasters over things and getting through, but people's like, that's the first time I've seen that actually done like that. And I think that's a really good thing with the Arknights. There is always that, oh, wait a minute, I just kind of scuffed through there, or a plan that's just out of the box kind of thing. I think that's a real strength for the game.
Operators, there are more than 12 people being name dropped. And that is already more than the number of people you can bring in most of the content within Arknights.
Yeah, true.
The squad size limit is just 12. And you most often won't be bringing all 12 of the strongest people into one single stage. Sometimes you still want more healing within the stage. You want to make sure that there's some defenders. If you recall, I don't really name any defenders, but defenders are good for stalling for people. You might want to bring supporters in order to buff your team, in order to protect them even more. And you might want more DP generation as well. So the idea of needing to own every single strongest character isn't that much of a need.
I always need a DP print when I get myself into a mess and I'm desperately having to panic post units out on the map.
Within AK. Just because you don't own Wizardell, you don't own Moina or Chen Alter, doesn't mean you can't clear content in the game. You might say that it will be harder, but harder doesn't mean impossible. One of the differences that I find within this gacha game compared to other gacha games is that the requirements and the scaling of their enemies sometimes...
I rate it as well. The fact that he's using B-roll footage of Star Rail, which is a perfect example of a game that's not really gone down that route. Which again, I'll give it credit to turn-based RPG, which I always have said that I feel like specifically it's harder to balance that sort of stuff in the game like that. But I'm glad he's showing a Star Rail, because I think he's one of the worst defenders at the moment.
Gets absurdly high to the point that in order to get rewards in those games, it feels like you need those strongest characters. But AK made it such that if you want to collect your in-game rewards, all those free LMD, EXP, all the mastery and building stuff that you need for your characters, they always ensure that it is not a requirement for you to own the biggest of units. You can simply get all these good stuff just by being able to understand what the stage is doing, being able to strategize with the people that you have. One of the best parts about Arknights is that there is so...
That's the beauty of Arknights, is, those like pre-planning, the little pre-planning sessions that go into prior to a stage, or you've just ran a stage and got your ass kicked, and then you're like, right, let's go back to the drawing board, let's switch some units out, and you sit there looking at the map for a little while, contemplating the other enemy units, where you just tend not to do that often in other gacha games, really. It's not entirely unique in that sense, But for the most of the gacha games, at least I play, they're typically reactionary based gacha games. So it's like build a character. As long as your mechanical skills on point, you do pretty much the same thing everybody else does. It might look slightly different. Your kit might be slightly, slightly different in terms of stats, but it's all kind of the same sort of thing. Arknights, it's just not. It's just not.
So much skill expression within the game. Everybody's gameplay is unique.
Yeah.
You won't see one player playing exactly the same way as another player. And that just makes it such a unique conversation and thing that happens within the game, where you can learn so much from each other. I don't really see that in a lot of the other gacha games. When it comes to clearing content, it always feels like the same team of 4 just going about.
Exactly what I said. Even if you do see little, twists, somebody using a slightly different team, somebody using an off-meta team, it's usually the same result. And again, skill expression and mechanical skill expression comes into things, which is totally fine. I'm cool with that. I love that. I like to sweat in a game sometimes. Not so much in something like a gacha game. So then again, I do sweat in Arknights. Well, I have been sweating on that freaking boss event anyway, in the Zwilling Sturmay boss, because that's had me sweating, and not even in a good way. I still haven't cleared it. But I agree. Yeah, I think for the most part, 90% of the time when it comes to particular content, you'll see the same units being used, even as the roster grows and grows and grows, right? It tends to be the meta shifts to a few individual units at a time, and that, like, depending on how fast that meta flows is how good the game state is in. Where, like, again, Arknights feels like it's not tied to that river so much. It doesn't have to follow that current as much as other games do. I think that's a really good point to make, how well the developers have created the mechanics, the stages, the characters, and crafted the game as a whole. Right, it is a really good thing, and yeah, as I say, I have fell in love with this game. It is at the moment my favorite gacha game, which I did not expect that to happen when I first started playing the game. I am incredibly anticipating Arknights Enfield. Man, at the minute, I'm telling you, man, Arknights where it's at, bro.
Their day with
Honestly?
every new type of content. But in AK, that 12-man squad can always be very different. Of course, if you compare, say, the hyper casuals to casuals, maybe you'll end up seeing the same thing, because one of the things that they might like to do is to follow the guides. But for a lot of the more so regular players within the game, then you can find that things like having Wizardell, some people will use it, but there will also be people who just say whatsoever.
Yeah, like for me, that, like, I'm not saying I wouldn't be tempted to use it on a stage if I got stuck and I had the character, but I have gone out my way not to look at guides. The only time we've ever looked at, I wouldn't even say guides, but stage clears, is when I've been stuck on a stage for a while and somebody's in chat's gone, now you've cleared that stage, check out how this other person did it, to see how somebody who, like, has a lot more knowledge about the game and did it, like, in I guess a lot more of an efficient way. That's the only time I've looked, and it makes the game way more enjoyable. I wouldn't want to watch guides and then go into the stages in a game like Arknights. I think that's where the game's beauty is, in my opinion.
Towards a character like that. I also think that Wizardell is such a wet dream for the casuals of the game, because having someone that can easily clear stuff within the game and allowing you to get on with your day, honestly, I am actually in favor of super strong characters appearing in Arknights, just because it makes people who already find this difficult game so challenging, they can find more ease in the fact that someone...
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, like, because at the end of the day, that's what gacha games are, aren't they? We have to understand that. I've seen conversations going around, especially since Wuthering Waves communities, people talking about gacha games, and how I've seen a lot of the conversations with Wuthering Waves and Zenless about them becoming casual, and it's like, the game's casual, man. It's a gacha game. It's a game where you can swipe to get better, to get more powerful. Not so much better, but to get more powerful. And I'm not saying these games don't have difficulty in them. There is some definitely difficult content in Wuthering Waves, and there is for sure some fucking difficult content in this game as well. But typically the difficulty in these games comes from time investment, right? And I definitely don't judge people who want to potentially go for ultra meta characters, because not so much because they're a meta slave, but because they don't want to be spending that extra time on a game. They just want to clear, get their rewards, get on with the day, go play something else, or go to work. I definitely don't judge that. That's why I say there is a place for these units that kind of pop up now and again. as long as the rest of the game doesn't get tied to them and you don't have a problem then.
One is saving their effort in order to think how to deal with a stage. Whereas for the rest of us, who enjoy things like IS, SSS, RA, Stronghold, and whatever game modes that arrive,
I can't wait to try the other
having that
modes.
variety of strategy is something that we care for. Wizardell is just another option of the many options that we choose to play in this game. There is still going to be the crew of people who say that these meta-breaking characters are just not fun. Why should they exist in the game? These same people may also say that this causes the problem of power creep, where a newer unit just feels significantly stronger than an older unit. And it's already kind of happened. Swallow feels much stronger to use than Helliker. You have Ling that's a lot better than Magalan, and then you also have Chen Alter that just makes Phantom look like nothing. My answer to such people is that Arknights is a PvE game, where your account is just catered and personalized to yourself. The thing is, even if you don't like these meta-breaking characters, you have the freedom of choice to say, I will just refuse to use them or get...
Yeah, this is true. Again, as long as the content is clearable, even if it's harder, as long as it's clearable, having units that make it easier is not a problem for me. Again, it's when you're getting to maybe like a bit of a star rail position where it's like, oh, you know, if you don't have this unit, it's going to be a rough time. And it's not because, oh, you just need to think outside the box. It's just because your stat stick is fucking small. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. I do think, though, just because it's PvE, we should be like, well, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that Cookie's saying this. I'm just saying, because this conversation does happen. I'm not saying Cookie's saying this, that, oh, it's PvE. It can't be paid to him, really. But, it doesn't matter. Anything goes. I disagree with that, because then you get into a position where the game becomes unfun, because the only way it's fun is if you're spending money. And I don't want to play a game like that, where I'm always chasing the meta, so to speak. But again, Arknights doesn't have that, so it's not a big deal anyway, so I agree with what he's saying.
Within my own account. Of course, people can say that I don't like it, but it's not to the extent that you say, oh, these guys exist, they should not exist in the game, we delete them. Like, just because you don't like someone, you delete them from this world. That's not a bad idea, actually, but you get what I mean, okay? Just because there's a strong character in the game doesn't mean you have to delete this character. Instead of conforming and using all the strongest units in the game, you can simply use the supposed weaker versions of them within the same...
It's kind of what I'm doing at the minute, and I'm really enjoying it. Was it Nickel Knights that people are calling it, or Niche Knights, or whatever the hell people call it? I love it, I do. It's kind of nice. Well, I say nice. It's painful sometimes. It really is painful, especially when you've been at a stage for like 2 hours, or you're getting your shit pushed in, and you could just easily make things less of a problem. Not remove the problem, but less of a problem. That when you solve it, oh my god, as I said before, the feeling's too good. It's too good.
If people were to question why you're doing that, which some people do within my own streams, my answer to them is, it's just more fun. It's so much more interesting to see such a gameplay than the standard, everybody just use all the big guns within a stage.
And to be fair, a lot of people say that in my streams as well. I'm like, that's like what I enjoy coming to the streams for, actually, because, you know, it is fun to, one, to watch you suffer, but two, to watch somebody start to figure things out, especially I think from a new player's perspective. But I think even advanced players, I think people like to see it, don't they?
I want to add
see the
that
cogs
with the
going, you know,
modules in the game,
the gears,
it does
the
very
gears
well
spinning.
in terms of balancing the 6 stars in the game. You have people like Silver Ash feeling closer to Moina, your snipers finally dealing more damage so that they can deal with higher defense enemies. You have 6 stars that do new things as well, like Viviana doing burn damage and Tons casting nervous impairment. Of course, there are some 6 stars where their modules don't feel as significant, but the game tries to compensate it with things like IS module, where you have people like Angelina, Rosmontes, Phantom going absolutely ham. So I feel like this game does a lot in terms of...
Should I be bringing Phantom in then? Oh, I see. When my first IS run, which you'll see the video, I was like, I went in totally blind. I was like, I don't know who to pick. I don't know what's going to be good here. So
making sure
we'll have to start learning that.
Pool for can all have something special going on for them. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I love Arknights just way too much. The whole thing about Wizardell being the strongest, she still is. And I wonder who is going to dethrone her at some point in time. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. But until that point in time, is it an issue that we have a strongest character? With 5-6 years of Arknights and seeing every single strong character, we lived on. You know, the game didn't die just because a new strong character exists. Instead, the game thrives for the fact that this helps with the casual players, the new players, the high-end players as well, if you want to go for some bigger strategies. But at the same time, there's
testament to good game design, I think.
Also, so many of us that can't give a damn about these strong characters. We just play with who we like. We play faction specific, class specific. We just play with random operators. Whatever strategy that we feel suits our own level of enjoyment and fun, that is the way that we go with Arknights, and that is also the beauty of the game. I want to know down in the comments, how do you feel towards this meta topic? Do you like meta? Do you hate meta? What do you give into? What do you not enjoy all that much? Let me know how do you feel whenever a new strong character appears. Let this be a time of discussion. And I hope this video has been a nice memory lane with all that meta name drops that we had in the front, and also just a nice place for you to sit in. So anyways, see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
I really like Cookie, I do. I fuck with him hard, man. I really like him. I agree. Same question there. But also, I'd like to ask, when it comes from a content perspective, because I've had a few people say this, I've also had some people be like, you know, they kind of don't want to watch my content anymore because the progression's slower. I'm curious, when it comes to, obviously, you probably want to ingest a bit of everything, right? But I personally find it really entertaining to play the game like that. And I'm curious, do you like to see that? How do you play the game yourself as well? I am curious about that because, yeah, it's a really enjoyable way to play the game for me. And I guess this is a little bit of a little temperature test for everybody in the comments. If you're still watching, you can answer down below. Do you like to see that sort of content? Somebody on the struggle bus a little bit, using, not out of the meta units, but less of them, not so many powerful units, trying to figure things out, trying to overcome and trying to work around the roadblocks that the game puts up for you, and actually achieving it, because it's a really good feeling to me. And I'd love to know what you guys think about it in the comments as well, guys. But anyway, guys, if you haven't checked out Cookie, go check him out. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. I'm doing some a little bit longer videos and a variety of videos. Obviously, I'm on holiday while you're watching this, so hopefully you've enjoyed the content. And I will be back around about the 16th or the 17th of June, streaming once again, back with all of the games. So look out for those streams as well, guys. And thank you very much for joining me in the video. All right, I'll catch you all later. Ta-ra.